All right, here we are. We are at our target customer and you are it. Okay. So I'm going to give you a website to go to, and you'll see the link, the website to go to that is going to help you with some of the demographic data. We talked about target customers. We talk about psychological, sociological, physiological. We talk about demographic data. So we're going to use a demographic data tool. The company is called Esri. It's one of the large. It's a worldwide GIS company. So great geographic service industry company. So they do GIS demographic mapping, and they have this great tool called Tapestry that gives us actual demographic data by zip code, and it gives us 3 segments by zip code. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you put in your zip code. I'm going to put in mine, and it's going to give me some data. Now, if in the course of this assignment you want to not necessarily do yourself, you want to do the zip code that you want to live in, or something that may be more affluent or less affluent, you can put in another zip code and it will spit out different demographic data for you. So let's start. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my zip code. I live in Fontana. I'll put in my Fontana zip code, and the first thing I get is the Fontana zip code boundary. So I see this is the boundary of the area of my zip code. Okay, so all of the demographic data that they're giving me is for within this boundary. Now, if I change the zip code, which will do later, I'll change it to Rancho later. If I change the zip code, I will get different demographic data. Okay, so you see over here we have 4 pieces of information. I'm going to go to this segmentation last because that's where we're going to really dive in. But it talks about disposable income for my zip code. So people under 25K only have about 7% of their income is disposable. People that make over 100K, they have a 42.6% disposable income. So in theory, these people have a lot of extra money. You always click on the eye on any of these, and it'll change the color. And you see when we get out of my zip code, you see that the demographics do change. So this screen talks about these people only have a 7% disposable income. So in some parts of Fontana, the disposable income piece is much different. Okay. If we go over here to some demographic population info, we see that currently in Fontana, there's 110,000 people that live here, and there is an estimate that we will get to 112. That population growth is births, but also new homes being built. And there's a bunch of new homes being built in Fontana still. Okay. Really important piece, especially for you as a buyer or as a business owner, is annual spending habits. So people in my zip code have an average credit card debt. Actually spend an average on their credit card of $3,867 a year. They spend about $2,700, $2,800 on apparel, about $4,700 on entertainment, and spend about $5,700 on medical insurance. Okay. Now this is the fun part. Okay. So in this Tapestry segmentation, for every zip code, they give you 3 segments of population. So they do a deep dive into the biggest segments of the population. So 43% of people in Fontana, they deem them what is called the Boomsburbs. Boomsburbs. So there's a very brief synopsis. So they have a median age of 34. They have about 3.5 people in their household side, and they have a diversity index. The diversity index actually is really high. That tells us that we live in a diverse area. And when I get to the next page, you'll see what the further breakdown is. But it gives you a brief synopsis of what the Boomsburbs are, and then we can do a deeper dive here when we click learn more. Click learn more, it takes you to another page that gives you a deep dive. So it tells you who they are. It talks about their neighborhood. It talks about those socioeconomic traits, and then it gives us all this demographic information. So it tells us the median age is 34. But it gives us a breakdown of ages. So we do see that even though the median age is 34, there are a lot of people in that in that 29, 20. We have a lot of people, a lot of young adults, and then we have a lot of folks in their 50s. It talks about the diversity index, so it tells us that we're about 15% of the population is Hispanic, those that are multiple races, Asian Pacific Islanders, Black, and then the majority is white. It talks about household budget by what we spend our money on. It talks about median household income, and it also talks about occupation. So this page is going to be really important for you to dive in to talk about where your customer is. Like, what is your customer makeup? Or is it white, Black, Hispanic? Is it this average? So you have some ability, if you have a specific target in terms of, like, if you're doing cultural, wear, like I wear a lot of African print fabric. So if I was would I put a store in Fontana? Maybe not, because it's only like an 8%, about 8% of the customer base here would be Black. So I would have to be very intentional if I put something here to have a strong online presence. Okay. So there's some data that you can dig into. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back to the other page. That was the first one. That was the Bloomsburg, but there's two others here. So next is the Urban Villagers. Again, median age, household size and diversity index. And these people, this segment, are multi-generational, multilingual. They're trendy and they're fashion conscious, they're risk takers, and they focus on their children and maintain gardens. And then if we dive in, again, it gives us some of those socioeconomic traits, and then it dives in, does a deep dive. So we see in this segment that it's largely Hispanic, and then other makes up. Other really is folks that haven't identified, or that just haven't identified, because Hispanics can identify as Hispanic and Black, Hispanic and South American, Hispanic and European. So that other kind of takes everybody in. So again, some demographics here. We see that although the average age is 34, it's a much more stable line here. When we looked at the Bloomsburgs, we see that line varies, right? Whereas for the Urban Villages, it's these numbers are much more comparable. Okay, and then if we go to the last, the workday drive, these are the folks they're the commuters. They are the ones who work in LA or Orange County, and they commute for their job, but they live here because of the affordability. So again, median age, household size, diversity index, and when we go do the deep dive on the data, you get those socioeconomic traits. And then when we look at the ages, again, we see that they're much more stable, but we do see that on the race and ethnicity side, it's less diverse than all the other places we've been in. It's a very, it's a much more, but the demographics say much more white dominated segment. Okay. All right. So based on the information here, you will be creating a target customer using the template that I provided. Okay, so you'll be doing a little bit of these segment. You'll be using information from these segments, from the spending habits and disposable income to determine who your target customer is. Okay, all right. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.